Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Equine Episode Examination, where today we will be doing our episode Flashback of the Season 4 episode, Flight to the Finish, CMC slash Scootaloo episode. So if you're new here, I'll quickly give the rundown of AAA. We do this live every week around 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on CinemaQuestria.com. Of course, everyone's welcome to join in the discussion when we do this live. And pretty much what we just do is we take an episode from the show, usually the newer episodes. But since we're on a hiatus, we're going back to some older episodes, and we're just gonna kind of dissect it, give our opinions on it, what we think of it, what we like, what we didn't like. Start a little broad and go a little more specific as the episode goes on. So that's kind of what we're going to do, and yet today we are reached the fifth episode, or was this fifth episode of season 5, or season 4?
I believe,
yeah, pretty sure, I thought it was 5th, yeah. And Flight to the Finish. So I'm Rain Shadow, by the way, and I'm joined by a few people here if they also want to introduce themselves.
Hey everyone, it's Mr. Ben.
And there's Jay Smith.
And yeah, lots of strong horses. So yeah, today we will be going into Flight to the Finish. So start off with what's everyone's initial thoughts on the episode?
I'm kind of surprised that they actually got around to actually acknowledging Scootaloo's possible inability to fly. I was wondering if they was ever going to get around to more or less confirming or denying that. And no, they actually pretty much the fact that they actually gone ahead and they pretty much kind of tackled it head on, it was actually great.
It was I enjoyed it. It's kind of weird. When I do remember when I first watched this episode, for some reason I really didn't like it. I think it kind of went in a direction I wasn't expecting it to, and in terms of how Scootaloo and the CMC kind of reacted to everything that had transgressed in the episode. But upon watching it further, not further, but rewatching it and watching it again, I did come to like it a lot more, and I really do like this episode. Now, it's very interesting. It balances a lot of things, both in terms of continuity and arcs, and also gives us another episode to focus on Scootaloo. We had one last season, of course, with her and Rainbow Dash, and here we kind of again get to see that kind of come to fruition here, as well as, like Mr. Ben said, actually dive into Scootaloo's inability to fly, or lack of flying ability, whatever, if she's completely not able or just a very slow learner or what, which was nice to see. But it was a good episode. Of course, this is the first episode to really tackle that, so. So we can go ahead and we can dive right into the story and the writing of this episode. This episode is the first episode written by then new writer Ed Valentine, who of course came back for season 6 and wrote two more CMC episodes in that season, kind of become his forte. So this is kind of his first episode, his first CMC related episode for the show. So what does everyone think about the story and the writing? Well, on the topic of Scootaloo having a home, I never really got that, because, were people hoping she was homeless? Or, I know the headcanon.
Popular headcanon, yeah, basically.
Well, no, I know the headcanon that I was most familiar with at that time was that she was an orphan, but not that she was like on the streets or something. I mean, just because she's living in a house doesn't necessarily even mean that your particular headcanon is broken there, because they didn't show anything else other than that she lived in some sort of building.
I was about to say, yeah, they didn't make that clear whether or not, actually, you know, it wasn't that she was homeless, but they didn't make it clear whether or not she was orphaned or not, because they didn't show her with any parents. They just showed her was having a roof over her head.
Yeah. Which, you know, could be an orphanage.
And I had no problem with the idea that she was probably maybe even an orphanage or possibly, you know, with parents. It's just we didn't see any parents.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I have to agree with you know, kind of the what the hell? Why do people expect her to be fully homeless? Did they just want her to be like seeing her as like living in a cardboard box on the street
has
or
to
something?
be miserable. It's like rule number 1 of the show, people. Come on. Well, I mean, that's the problem with trying to please people is there's everyone wants something different, and you're never going to deliver something that's going to satisfy what everybody wants or what everybody's headcanons are, you know. So it's just kind of, yeah. So in the end, I'm more willing to accept kind of what the show throws at us, because even if it's not something maybe I particularly wanted or was looking for, it's like not everything's going to cater to me specifically. So, you know, maybe I'm a little easier to forgive than some people are in that respect. Yes, no spike abuse, no, but scoot abuse, yeah, we're good for that. I personally, I think this episode was really well written, especially for a first episode. It's kind of a very character heavy and intense, not really the word I'm looking for, but the closest I can think of at the top of my head, episode to give a brand new writer to the show with Ed Valentine. Both, it's not just a simple, here's your characters, you know, make some fun story around them. I mean, here we're actually really diving deep into kind of Scootaloo and one of her well, I guess, you know, not flaws, but, you know, the fact that she is unable to fly, and also diving into kind of some of her personality flaws as well, in terms of how she reacts to that, and how she responds and treats her friends afterwards. And we also see some of the other CMC, I mean, this is kind of character discussion here, but, you know, some of these other CMC's faults as well, and we'll get to that. But just, again, giving all these kind of very specific kind of character study things to a new writer was something that's pretty interesting. I think Ed Valentine really took that and was able to deliver a really good story revolving around that. It wasn't just kind of a very, very simple story. There was a lot of small little details to it. I don't really think the ending was much of a whiplash. I mean, I guess it depends on what part you're referring to as the ending there, Tim. I really liked what they did with sort of the resolution to the problem. Again, just kind of drawing on what we had set up for in the previous season. This episode, and another thing this episode had, that was, again, something to just push on a new writer with Ed Valentine. This thing juggled a lot of different continuity things. Of course, this involved the Equestria games, which was set up at the end of last season, and is setting up for more episodes relating to them later in the season as well. And on top of that, pulling upon Scootaloo's previous episode in Sleepless in Ponyville and sort of the relationship she built with Rainbow Dash in that episode as well. And so taking both of those things and kind of combining them into one episode here, that allows us to get some character development from it for Scootaloo, but also allows us to see Rainbow Dash in a role as kind of like a sisterly mentor role to Scootaloo that was set up in the previous season. It was nice to kind of see that come to fruition so soon after that episode. Okay. I wasn't sure what part. I see what part you're talking about. Okay, Tim. Yeah, they kind of had to cram that, you know, have so much emotional, heavy-hitting stuff happening throughout the rest of the episode. It was kind of like, oh yeah, we got to resolve this main kind of main kind of plot here at the end of the CMC getting to represent Ponyville. How was it a whiplash, though? I mean, I can understand it was kind of very, very fast-paced to try and get to the end of the episode and resolve the plot with the CMC participating in the thing. I'm not sure how it was like a mood. I'm assuming you're by whiplash you mean mood whiplash, or is it a different kind of whiplash you're talking about? Do you mean this? Do you mean the CMC are literally having whiplash, being dragged by Scootaloo's scooter? Is that what you're referring to? I guess. But you're more referring to like a pacing whiplash then, like the ending picked up a pace really quickly after we had the slower emotional moments. I'm assuming that's what you mean then. Yeah, because the song kind of kicks that into gear. Okay, I get. Okay, I got you. I get what you're saying then. Okay, perfect. I guess didn't really understand what exactly was whiplash, but I get you there. Yeah. I really liked how, of course, with a CMC episode at this point in the show, we gotta have the Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon in it. But I just loved how Ed Valentine kind of worked them in with them, of course, going in and teasing them about being their blank flanks. Oh, you can't represent Ponyville because you're blank flanks, and the CMC gets. Pretty much at this point, it doesn't even affect them that much. They're just like, it has nothing to do with anything here, and pretty much they don't let it get to them. And then of course they go out there and they perform really well. And Diamond Tiara and CMC, Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon have to kind of come up with a way to take it to the next level, because Silver Spoon's like, well, we already called them blank flanks, like that's all they knew how to do, kind of lampshading. Pretty much that's what they do in the show. And then kind of using that as a stepping stone to make them take it to the next level and actually start leveling more personal insults directly at one of them as well. But I just kind of liked how they kind of made that happen, and just, they're doing what they do, but they kind of lampshade the fact that they do this all the time and it really doesn't affect them much anymore.
Yeah, and it's it's kind of one of those things you kind of have to worry about, because once they realize that, okay, the blank flanks don't seem to work anymore, and they've seen how effective that mocking Scootaloo's effective disability is, you kind of have to wonder if they won't even adopt that as like a new form of bullying. And then you have to also realize that even if they do, it probably won't work nearly as well for them, because the Crusaders know that their friendship is stronger than any lack of ability the Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon could have chose to mock them over. I mean, aside from Scootaloo's disability, what else are they going to do? Call Apple Bloom uncultured, or make fun of Sweetie Belle being not so great with her magic? I mean, nothing else they have really compared to Scootaloo's inability to fly, and even that utterly failed after a short pep talk and a quick reassurance of their friendship. Uh, but then again, you also kind of get the point that Diamond Tiara also doesn't even care that much because she only escalated her taunting as part of a plan rather than because she actually cared about the Crusaders' feelings. And yeah, they probably could have tried it straight to physical abuse, yeah.
Yeah, Rainbow Dash was kind of it was like Tim was saying earlier. She was giving a nice bit of building as well, and kind of put through out of her comfort zone with her trying to be more professional, in what she's doing, and sort of purposely dialing back her praise of the CMC, which of course goes on to actually affect them going forward in the episode. Trying to think of what else story-wise and trying to dance around some of the character discussion. This is obviously a very big character episode, like I mentioned for Scootaloo, the CMC, and for Rainbow Dash as well. It was a nice little setup and continuation. This kind of goes, it's interesting, and this kind of goes into the next point here of the next section here of kind of relation to the season arc and themes. This episode doesn't relate at all to the key arc of the episode with the lockbox, but this actually does relate to a secondary arc that the season has, and that's the Equestria Games arc. So this was, of course, set up last season in the previous episode that Miss Harshwani was in season 3, and that kind of continues here in this episode. We'll get the episode with Rainbow Falls a few episodes down the line here, and of course that all leads up towards the end of the season with the actual Equestria Games there. And it's kind of a nice little secondary overarching plot, not really plot, but like situation or event that's happening throughout the course of the season, and we kind of see different episodes take it on. So it kind of relates. It's very similar. This arc is very similar to the season 1 arc of the show, where the arc is pretty much the gala is at the end of the season, and so we have a couple episodes throughout the season that we see them mentioning the gala or having some sort of making dresses for the gala or whatever. So it's kind of a similar thing where we have a couple episodes this season that are dealing with either setting up. So here we're dealing with finding the group that's going to represent Ponyville and the opening ceremonies, and then the next episode finding the team that's going to represent Ponyville in the series, and then kind of framing those episodes around some sort of character arc. And of course the next one's even a key episode, so a kind of double arc episode in Rainbow Falls, and of course leading up to the finale of this arc, the Equestria Games episode, which of course revolved around Spike and kind of framed for that. That's one thing I really did like, is just kind of have the crew kind of experimenting with another kind of B arc and having that span over a couple seasons here, with it starting last season. And I know a lot of people have reservations about kind of where that arc went and the actual Equestria Games episode. But I think it was kind of cool to see them trying something like that and tying multiple episodes together. Because each of those episodes are very individual. It's not like you have to watch any of them to kind of get what happens in the other ones. They're just setting up individually for different parts of the Equestria Games. But the episodes themselves have their own problems, like their own plot points, their own character development areas that they're tackling. They're very isolated, even though they're part of a bigger arc.
This episode is also very similar to Some Pointing to Watch Over Me and For Whom the Sweetie Belle Toils, in that it implies why the respective crusaders are so eager to get their marks. Because Scootaloo is so deeply insecure about her inability to fly, she really wants to know if that's what she's meant to do, if she's not meant to fly. Now, of course, this kind of is somewhat rendered a bit moot by when the CMC finally do get their marks. But at the time, we really didn't know. And even so, even with the fact that she's got her mark, it still really hasn't particularly answered that particular question. But, while the episode does kind of leave it ambiguous as to whether or not Scoot will ever eventually be able to fly, and, granted, to complain about getting no solid conclusion on the issue would be kind of missing the point of the episode entirely. If you look at the episode's title, you can make the argument that the title is a little bit the double meaning. I mean, if Scootaloo will be able to fly, we may not know for certain until the show actually nears its true end. There's also the possible point in that, this also focuses on Rainbow Dash and Scootaloo's relationship as well, because everyone focuses on Dash as the flyer. So a lot of people think that Scootaloo wants to emulate that part of Dash and have the same goal of becoming like a Wonder Bull. But it's also that it's possible that Scootaloo just admires Dash for her attitude and personality and show ponyship in general, and not for the actual ability to fly. So she doesn't really need to be able to fly to be like Dash. She just needs to have confidence in herself and her abilities and her loyalty to her friends. So, because, it seems that Dash seems to think the same way, because she acknowledges Scootaloo might not be able to fly, but she doesn't think anything. She obviously doesn't think any less of Scootaloo for it. Either way, it was definitely a great character building moment for pretty much everyone involved almost.
Tim, what do you mean by the excuse arc? What part of the episode are you referring to by that? I'm still not sure what you mean by excuse arc, but okay. See, anything else for the story or the writing of the episode? Okay, let's move on to the characters and characterization discussion for it. I just really liked in this episode, just again building upon what we set up in Sleepless in Ponyville, where Rainbow Dash sort of unofficially kind of adopts Scootaloo as her sister, and this episode is the first episode of many to come where we see them bonding and spending time together and seeing that growing and that really their relationship growing here, and so. The episode starts out where obviously she's very, very involved with Scootaloo, but it kind of builds as the episode goes on. So of course, with the first time they perform, we see Rainbow, very, very much into and liking their presentation, or I'm trying to think of the right word. Liking their performance, even though she's trying to be very restrained about it. But she obviously has a lot, invested in them, and is very happy to see them succeed. But then kind of all building up to the final part of the episode there, where, Rainbow Dash, kind of, they go into Scootaloo's room there, and they give her this, very emotional kind of talk about her and, what her, abilities are, and how in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't really matter. And I just really like that. It's very mature kind of words, like coming out of Rainbow Dash's mouth there, and really being a great sort of mentor to Scootaloo. Just being a really great mentor to Scootaloo there at the end, and providing her with a lot of moral support. It was just nice to see that kind of built upon that their previous episode there. And that whole kind of moral at the end, in terms of Rainbow Dash, liking Scootaloo for who she is, and she don't have to, yeah, sure, I'm as a great flyer, but you're not me, you're you, and you're great at a lot of things, and and she really likes those things that she's great at, so she can't start. Even though she really looks up to Rainbow Dash, she shouldn't try and be Rainbow Dash or be a flyer, because she has all these other talents, and her inability to fly in the grand scheme of things just doesn't matter. It was just a very, very good message, about acceptance and being comfortable with who you are, and being comfortable with any inabilities that you might have, and it's just about being yourself.
Aside from being yourself and not, all that, there's also a secondary moral on that as well, that was kind of unintentional, but could also really work as well. Because some people are just simply born differently, and we can't take what we do for granted. That doesn't mean you still can't excel and be awesome.
And of course, like we talked about before, there's more, even kind of more character for Rainbow Dash here, with her trying to be more, more restrained, and we see her being her normal excitable self, but then trying to be more restrained after Miss Harshwinny kind of gives her some kind words about that. And I think Scoodloo's character was very interesting, because that's kind of what caught me off guard is, watching this episode and you get to the part where they start making fun of Scootaloo for not being able to fly, and you're like, oh, so this is going to be that episode then. But they kind of go a slightly different way than you might be expecting with kind of how Scootaloo deals with the situation, where she doesn't necessarily take that and get upset or start moping or anything like that. She's just like, oh, well, I'm gonna, that's what we're gonna have to do. We're going, if they're gonna say that we can't have this pet, this performance about the 3 types of ponies and not have a flying Pegasus, well, then I'm gonna have to just try 10 times as harder and fly. And of course that gets to a point where she starts having a fault and not being able to kind of accept who she is, or accept, what shortcomings she might have, and just kind of works herself and her friends just overboard trying to get this down, and winds up really, hurting their presentation and hurting their friendship as well, because she starts really focusing on that one thing and not focusing on how her friends were, how she was wound up treating her friends there. And it's kind of this nice depth to that, where, it isn't just an episode about her being bullied about not being able to fly and, dealing with that. It's an episode about her dealing with that in such a way where she's actually doing harm to other people by trying to overcompensate for it. And it was a great episode too, because it's not an episode where Scoodloo can't. Speaking about her trying, it's not even an episode where she's told she can't fly and she tries and tries and tries, and eventually at the end, she can, she can fly. She just needed to practice that much harder. No, it delivers a really nice, mature lesson at the end about, being, who you are and liking who you are, and some things, you might not be good at that, but you're good at so many other things that you should, be focusing on. It wasn't like a really happy, over-the-top happy kind of resolution there, but it was a very emotional, happy character building resolution for Scootaloo. And now she doesn't have to necessarily focus on not being able to fly going forward. She can focus on, how talented she is on her scooter, and how even though she can't fly, her wings can still, just look at the freaking montage during the reprise and how fast she's pulling the other 2 CMC on her scooter there. She obviously has a lot of wing power.
But say, yeah, that was actually the one thing that I wanted to mention, because I have noticed a lot of times where Scootaloo has actually tried to fly earlier in the series, and she hasn't been able to get much more than maybe like a hover or so, probably just a foot or 2 at most off the ground. But you could see that her wings are buzzing like that of a hummingbird's almost, and I'm really thinking that Scootaloo's wings are not so much disabled, but differently progressive, in that they're not built for flight, but they're built for thrust.
Yeah.
In that she's not, because you can see her zipping all around left and right and on her scooter, and then even at this particular point in the episode, you see her drag her friends in what's essentially a wagon, and just with her and her scooter and carrying two friends, they're able to outrun a steam train at on uneven terrain, no less.
Or at least catch up to it.
Yeah.
My headcanon, and if this gets unheadcanonized ever, that's fine. But my headcanon, I got this headcanon after the season 4 finale, is that Scootaloo is not necessarily that her wings are broken or disformed or anything like that, but that Scootaloo lacks the flying magical ability. Because we all know unicorns have magic, but I think based on what we see in the season 4 finale, that all ponies have magic, but different kinds. Unicorns have actual magic that they can control stuff with their horns, but Pegasi actually fly using magic, and Earth ponies have that kind of magical super strength that the other ponies don't have. Because we see that in the season 4 finale when T-Rex isn't just sucking out magic from unicorns, he's sucking out magic from Pegasi, and they're losing their ability to fly when they do that, I believe, if I'm remembering that correctly from that episode. So that could potentially be implying then that maybe Scootaloo, even though she obviously has very strong wings because she's able to do like Mr. Ben said and catch up to this train, and be very quick on her scooter, maybe it's not necessarily her wings that are the problem. Maybe it's she's lacking some sort of magical ability to actually do that the other Pegasi have. That's always kind of, after watching the season 4 finale, that's always kind of been my headcanon for Scootaloo, is that her wings aren't necessarily the issue. It's that magical ability that actually gives Pegasi the ability to fly with those wings. Because I think a lot of times you see Pegasus flying and they're not using their wings, and their wings are helping, but they're not using that necessarily. It doesn't look like they're using them to do 100% of the work there. This episode also it's also interesting in this episode to see the reactions of Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle and how they differ through here, and we actually get a little bit of a fault with Apple Bloom that we see here when stuff starts kind of getting really tough, and obviously Scootaloo isn't really thinking of her friends anymore. Apple Bloom really gets really angry and just kind of reflects some of that right back at Scootaloo, to the point where she's telling her that, we don't really want to quit her on our team, and pretty much just, instead of actually going to help, her friend deal with what she's going through here, she just kind of takes all of that, she's understandably upset because of how Scootaloo is acting, but she just kind of gets very brash about it and just ditches her, while Sweetie Belle is a lot more subdued in her reactions, and she obviously is showing a lot of empathy for how Scootaloo is feeling, even if she's still, in the end, after they've been training all that time, she, and Apple Bloom kind of storms away angry that, I need some sleep now, we've been doing this all night, we're not getting anywhere. Sweetie Belle's a lot more empathetic, but she's just like, I'm really sorry, Scootaloo, but I really need to get some sleep. And even at the end, when Apple Bloom just tells her to fine, we don't want to quit her here, Sweetie Belle is definitely a lot different in that respect, where she again isn't quite as brash as Apple Bloom is being in that situation. It's kind of interesting to see all of these interactions. That's something going into the episode I wasn't expecting. I was expecting the CMC to be helping her, overcome at every, and work with her at every obstacle. So when I'm starting to see the CMC, getting very frustrated with her, and Apple Bloom, getting angry at Scootaloo for what Scootaloo's going for, it's something I wasn't expecting, but something that's kind of very real to the situation.
in a way, this also opens up the possibility for, different development later on as well. In that, Scootaloo, even if she doesn't really, find any way of being able to fly, it doesn't mean that, other possibilities are not open to her with to be able to, with her ability as is. What I mean to say is that, like, recall the Wonderbolts Derby that Rarity was able to see when she was up in Canterlot. Scootaloo may not be able to fly, but she still may be able to participate in something similar, or maybe an exception might be made to where she might be able to do something on the ground with her scooter. And just because she's not able to actually fly in a traditional sense, she still may be able to easily keep up with them just on her scooter, using her wings in that manner.
And it might even be that doing something in the Wonderbolts isn't really for Scootaloo either. I mean, or something she winds up not. She Rainbow Dash is her idol and her big sister now, but not necessarily means that she's going to realize eventually that maybe that there's something else that she likes to do more. And we definitely know that she's very talented on a scooter. She's very athletic, and very talented sort of dancing wise, like we see in the Showstoppers episode, where she's kind of shown to be very sort of nimble and almost like a dancer in that episode, just because of the moves she's able to practice and pull off on her scooter.
It's also not to say that she may not wind up making like her own sort of variation or spin-off of the Wonderbolts, like kind of like making her own team of stunt mares or something like that. I'm just going off on a tangent here, really.
And yeah, DM. I think Sweetie Belle's always kind of been a little bit more of the subdued one of the three CMC, and in a lot of ways, definitely a lot more calm and collected than Apple Bloom and Scootaloo are. Which is funny given all the freakouts her sister frequently has. And a lot of times, I think Sweetie Belle does act like the most mature of the three CMC, and we actually see that in the previous CMC episode in season 3 with Mab Seed, where Sweetie Belle's the one that entire time that's kind of saying, maybe we should just tell Applejack about this. And it's Scootaloo and Apple Blooms particularly that didn't want to do that and talk them out of that. Yeah, DM is a nice little visual kind of metaphor in that shot there too, as she leaps up there and spreads her wings and arms, sort of like she's flying there for a brief second. Again, just kind of signifying how she's accepting who she is. I know someone mentioned earlier about, why didn't the CMC go to Rainbow Dash about what Diamond Tiara did, but really what Diamond Tiara did was a very small part of the episode. She wasn't constantly bullying Scootaloo, like, all throughout there. It wasn't like Babseed, where that whole episode Babseed was doing nothing but bullying the CMC. Here, it just, she kind of made that passing remark about her flying, and that kind of just set things in motion in Scootaloo's head for the rest of the episode, that she needed to work harder so she could be able to fly and, you know, be able to represent Ponyville properly and Pegasi properly. And there's also that kind of that little subtle thing in this episode about, you know, sort of who you are and what you're expected to do based on where you come from, and how, you know, it's okay to be yourself and be what you're good at. And just because you're a Pegasus and you can't fly doesn't mean you're worth anything less, or you don't have other talents or anything, you know, other things you're good at. It doesn't make you any less of a Pegasi or any less of a part of Ponyville. And I think that's one of the things I like about this series the most. It does have these very mature topics like that about acceptance and stuff like that. And there's a lot of that revolving around this episode. But it's never really felt like it's pushing it in your face, or you're trying to be like, oh, here's the moral. You know, it's very realistic, and I think that's really great, especially for kids to see, because it isn't like something where kids are watching and it's like, oh, there's the moral, I better do that. It's something that's more subtle and more subconscious, seeing like how people are acting, what's right, what's wrong. Oh, it's okay to be, you know, Rainbow Dash is being accepting of Scootaloo here. And we see that, you know, throughout the episode here, and that's something I think this series does consistently well. Throughout all 5 seasons, and continues to do very well. It also says something about Diamond Tiara there. It's interesting that she's never used that, you know, that insult towards Scootaloo until now. Like, she had to take it to the next level since the whole Cutie Mark thing wasn't working anymore. Yeah, I think Tim mentioned something like this earlier, about that we kind of seeing this kind of set up now for next season in terms of kind of what happens in Crusaders of the Lost Mark with, again, Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon kind of working against the CMC there and throwing insults, but we've already seen them in this episode start to work against them, and they're not being affected necessarily by those insults much anymore, especially about being blank flanks. And they're able to just move past that and ignore it. And of course, that all comes to sort of fruition in Crusaders of the Lost Mark there. I mean, do we even see Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon again after this episode until... No, we saw them in Twilight Time. We saw them in I forgot about... Yeah, they're in Twilight Time as well. And it's interesting there, too, again, continuing from this. In that episode, we really don't see them... You know, in that episode, they're more focused on using the CMC to get something, you know, in terms of time with someone who's very important in Equestria there. see. I thought there was something else I had to mention, but it's escaping my mind. Was there anything else that anyone wanted to mention in terms of character development, character representation in this episode? Yeah, we still need another episode with Diamond Tiara now, post-Reformation. Maybe we'll get that this coming season. I'm surprised we didn't really see her at all last season. Yeah, good point. There's only Rainbow Dash in here. They didn't shove any of the other characters in as well. Something we'll see more of going forward in the show there, in terms of being a little more focused on certain characters, not feeling the need to necessarily have all of them represented in every episode. Especially when it comes to Twilight, since we're not doing, the letters to the princess anymore. Okay, so we can, I think we can go ahead and move on. I think we've tackled just about everything character-wise. So voice acting. Anything stand out for voice acting for anyone in this episode they want to point out?
Nicole Oliver gets a surprise cameo appearance as Cheryl in this episode.
There's not seeing that her in the schoolhouse again. I don't believe we had seen them at this point in the series since Hearts and Hooves Day. Or no, the other one. The Gabby Gums episode was after that one.
So yeah, Venus Sud was very well done in this particular episode. It's always nice seeing Harshwani again. Actually, I wasn't expecting to see her again too, considering the fact that the last time we saw her was what was it, back in? It was
season 3. It was It was the previous Equestria Games, or first Equestria Games episode. Yeah. Previous, first, same thing. Yeah, I always like hearing more of Maddie Peters as Scootaloo. I think she always has done a really great job as Scootaloo. So hearing, being able to tackle some more of those emotional things both here and in the previous Scootaloo, a lot of Scootaloo episodes, the past couple CMC ones, which is funny because we had a lot of episodes focusing on Apple Bloom and some more on Sweetie Belle, like in Sisterhood of Social, but we really hadn't had any Scootaloo focused episodes really until last season with Sleepless in Ponyville, and so we get another one here, which was nice. But they all take the characters very nicely through a lot of different emotions here, and in terms of happiness and anger and emotional, it's emotions and sadness. And it's great hearing him sing. I guess one thing is kind of tying into the song but we'll mention here since it's voice acting. This is with the exception of the song, quote unquote, the 99 bottles of beer on the wall song that Sweetie Belle sang last season. This is the first episode where Claire Corlett has started singing for Sweetie Belle, where previously it was Michelle Kraber who also sang for her. But now each of the three CMC actually sing for them, and it's really cool in the song in this episode because they actually split them off for most of the song with Scootaloo in the center channel, Sweetie Belle in the right channel, I believe, and Apple Bloom in the left channel, so you can kind of hear them individually singing their parts. So it was cool hearing Claire actually sing for Sweetie Belle here, and she did a good job for that. And I really like hearing Scootaloo's part in this song as well. See, so we can move on to the humor of the episode. It's like a little bit of humor in here. I really like the visual gag at the end of the song, where they kind of jump into the air and give each other a high five and stuff to end the song, and then Silver Spoon and Diamond Tiara kind of come out and start launching the insults, and it cuts back to them and they're still in the air standing, and kind of then just do the cartoon fall to the ground once they realize that. Diamond Tiara is there.
Miss Harshwinny won face of the episode easily on this one.
Yeah.
Several times, no less. Let's say we had the whole professionalism running gag going on with Rainbow Dash constantly flip-flopping between usual outgoing enthusiasm and her attempt at being a restrained professional. And then the whole thing finally being turned on its head at the end when, Harshwinny is being so impressed by the Crusaders' display, she starts gushing about it, and Rainbow Dash takes the time to actually says, "Control your enthusiasm. Remember, professionalism."
How many middle names does Rainbow Dash have? That's what I want to know.
And we
Too
lost
fucking
count.
many.
We lost count at this point.
yeah, right. I concur with Radio Dogs there. We keep seeing Scootaloo struggling to go up these stairs over and over again throughout the song, and finally it cuts, kind of pans back, and she's just climbing up these 3 small stairs up to the stage this entire time. Very kind of turning the kind of Rocky montages on its head. And of course, we already have Bulk there. Some DM12, the Bulk biceps, scared of the butterflies image when they're doing the rope.
That's
pull
also
against
kind of hilarious in a roundabout sense, because not only is he startled by a butterfly, but 5 episodes later, we see him getting on very well with Fluttershy, whose cutie mark is, well, should be pretty obvious at this point.
Professional danger.
Nice. I do remember how Cutie Mark Crusaders were like, "Hey, we'll finally get our Cutie Marks and flag carrying," and then Rainbow Dash kind of has this look of this is getting really old.
We should totally get rid of it next. We should hopefully don't be done with this by next.
It was funny at the end of the episode though, because they kind of fake you out, because the camera, for whatever, they had to do this on purpose. The camera, after they kind of do that, they kind of have this little musical cue, and the camera kind of slowly pans into like Scootaloo's like flank there, like, oh my god, something's gonna appear, and then it's like, no, nothing's gonna appear, and then she makes this joke about maybe we're gonna Cutie Marks and flag carrying, sort of like just laughing ha ha at the audience, like you thought it was going to be you thought it was gonna happen, but it's not. Yeah, well, their second try at their performance was pretty funny in a sad way.
Scootaloo's sheepish ta-da after she puts on a complete failure of a show. Their first time around, I think.
After the last episode, Daring Do, that's when the whole kind of best face of the episode thing sort of started. So yeah, the one you linked was shared a lot of times because of that. Because from episodes on, everyone was looking for like, oh, what weird freeze frame face can we find this week after that glorious one from Daring Don't. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it became a meme, but it was definitely a very popular image that got shared around a lot.
And in this episode, it seemed like Harshwini seemed was very animated with her facial expressions. I think after Daring Don't, when in Harshwini, this was where you really start paying attention and to notice that the facial animations were improving.
Gotta love the smug rainbow face, though.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, we can go animation and animation visuals. I know Mr. Ben had already mentioned Miss Harshwini's face. She had a very different and much more pronounced mouth animation than any of the other characters have had. I mean, pretty much up until this season, there wasn't really a lot of times when mouths animations varied from kind of the stock standard stuff, maybe with the exception of a few like freeze frame like expressions. But hers was pretty much the first where it was very noticeable, and a lot of people noticed it, like the different animation on her mouth, just because of the different enunciation she was able to she gave in the voice acting, and also how that translated to the animation on her mouth. And we'll see a lot more of those kind of different custom mouth animations and stuff going forward in future seasons. And yeah, a lot of the other animation was really great. Some great stuff in, of course, the song, and I really like the ending, that kind of ending freeze frame. The song where they're silhouetted there against the sun was really nice. It was a nice montage song. It was storyboarded very well for that. Nothing seemed too out of place or boring or repetitive in it. I did like seeing the return of the bad looking scenery from their performance from Showstoppers. It's a little bit improved. They've showed improvement since Showstoppers, but it was still pretty fun to look at. Yep, they definitely improved on how to put on a performance since then. I really like the animation during the reprise of the song too, as Scootaloo is going, zooming past and dragging the CMC behind. The animation on the CMC being dragged behind her, kind of tethered, like almost like they're skiing, like water skiing off the back of Scootaloo. There was really well done. Seeing them kind of whip through all the crowds and the cameras panning through the town and characters kind of are coming towards the camera while they were all flying around them. It was well done. You're gonna have to start putting DM. You're gonna have to make sure you're putting a space between the URLs because it's not actually linking. Because there's no space between the text and the URL. Oh yeah. Good point. D92 dark. The kind of the stallion when they're talking about Heart's Strongest Horses as they're walking. They're both mini ponies. When their powers combine, they form one full pony. Okay. Anything else visual wise or humor wise that we missed that anyone wants to point out before we move on?
There was the animation of Scootaloo. I lost the moment it was on, but there was one bit where Scootaloo tries to hover in the air and then she falls down. And one of her eyes half closed and a goofy face. It was around the 12 of 21 mark.
Let's see. Okay, so we will. Oh gosh, YouTube is not being a friend today in terms of accepting my bits. What is... Just gotta kind of wait for YouTube to catch up here for a second. Yeah, that's that freeze frame shot from... Okay, Okay, it should be coming back up now. It looks like it's working a little bit better after restarting there. Okay, so we can go ahead and we can move on to the next part here, which is the song and music number. We finally get our first song of the season here. Five episodes in here with Flight to the Finish, and that's something else that has been a constant in Ed Valentine episodes starting with this. He's had 3 of his 4 episodes have been CMC episodes, and all 4 of them have had songs in them as well. So if he returns for season 7, and you might expect a song for his next episode as well. Yeah, this song I really like the song. It was very different. It had a very different feel to it, and different instrumentation than we normally get for songs from the series. This is one of the first songs of the series that really felt different for the series itself. It was very unique, and it has definitely a lot of inspiration from, like, I really could feel a lot of like vibes of like kind of like a Mulan feel, sort of like a Make a Man Out of You sort of thing, with a very, very march-like drum section and rhythm section to it. But I really like this song. I still really like it. It still has a very different feel to it. And of course, going forward in seasons from this, we definitely get a lot of songs that have very unique feels or genres that we'll be getting into from here on out as Dan Unger sort of experiments with different kind of sounds for it. So we'll go ahead and we'll play the instrumental here to this song, once I can find Heartstrong. So here's Heartstrong as Horses here, again with a very heavy march percussion section to it. And of course, oops, I can't hear it. Hold on. It would help if I turned it on my side. It also, of course, has the sort of mandolin part right in front and center for it. A little bit of some woodwind flourishes mixed in here as well. Some acoustic guitar as well. Hear some of the backing vocals here as well from I believe that's Claire. I just really like the whip sounds and sort of the very echoey claps from the percussion here. Some backing vocals from Michelle here as well. And we'll go right here into the reprise as well. So it starts out slower and then goes through a key change to the chorus. ending with the snare drums there at the end. So yeah, I really like the song. It has a really unique feel. I like the march theme, and it fits very well with the visuals, or they made the visuals fit really well with the song there, and it's sort of that kind of determined feel that the whole song entails. Yeah, I really love the reprise too, with that little key change up there, mixed with the visuals and just the overall melody of the chorus fits really well and feels really emotionally good for that reprise or not the reprise, for that resolution, just kind of the problems that Scootaloo has been facing throughout the episode, and sort of seeing her do, hearing this while seeing Scootaloo, like fly through the air after she, kind of launches off a ramp and moving, very fast, in an action way through Ponyville is very satisfying visually and auditory wise. Anything else for the song that anyone wants to mention? Let's see. So as we can move on to the score to the episode here. Let me just pull that up really quick. Had a lot of the CMC's motifs in this episode. Their little fanfare was used a couple times in this episode, unsurprisingly. Flight to the finish, there you are. Oops, oh gosh, come on. Trying to see where to start out here. Got a few small marches here that start the episode off with Rainbow Dash and Miss Harshwinny speaking. So I won't really play it, but there's we get a little bit of a more subdued march mixing in. It kind of goes back and forth between that and some like electric guitars, and very energetic electric guitars at that for Rainbow Dash, as we the two characters kind of fight for control over the presentation to the fillies there in the classrooms. From there, this next part here is when the CMC are leaving the schoolhouse and talking about if they're going to actually participate in this. Very much kind of a very CMC style of score there with the feel and the guitars of that first part. And here's this one. And there's one of the CMC themes right there that we've heard before, I believe, and we'll hear again for them. From there, we kind of go on after the song, and this is when the Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon sort of challenge the CMC that, we're going to do better than you at the thing, and they kind of have this little face-off music. It's this very high-octane kind of face-off score based on the CMC's fanfare that we've heard before, so we kind of hear this little fanfare in a different context here. Oops, let me replay that. Very short. It kind of takes us to the commercial break there, but it's kind of funny hearing that score that we've heard them before in a little bit different of a context there. So this next one is the backing score for the CMC's presentation here. Go into that little fanfare at the end there as well, which is used for their presentation. Another thing I forgot to mention, I like that we see their performance at the end of the season in the Equestria Games episode as well, very briefly, but we see them doing their thing, which is kind of cool. Moving forward here a little bit, this is after after Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon have sort of laid down the insults on Scootaloo, and Scootaloo's trying very hard to fly on her own, so we get a little more emotional track here. She's kind of falling into despair there. From there, the emotional part of the score continues as we get to the part of the episode where Scootaloo is telling Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle that she's not going to be going to the competition, and just giving up on flying, and of course Apple Bloom's reaction to that as well. A little sad, emotional motif in there. We hear that one again in future episodes as well. So finally we get to the part where Rainbow Dash is sort of having that intervention with Scootaloo and talking about how she's herself, and she, giving her that emotional pep talk. So we kind of get, again, more emotional score here to back this scene here. And it has very nice subtle little things here that add to the dialogue on the screen that I really like.
Throwing away your scooter?
Here we get a little bit of one of the lesson motifs here. And I really like this part coming up when Scootaloo asks if she will be able to fly ever. Just after we get a little bit more of this. The score just kind of stops here. The score just kind of stops there at the end and just has a little bit of a flute to kind of carry out the rest of the track there, which is a nice little touch that helps the emotional weight of kind of what's going on in the scene there. So, and finally we get to the final track at the end of the episode here with the CMC performing their act successfully to win the competition. So we'll hear a little bit of the competition music from before. And we'll hear a little bit of kind of like the score kind of, when it kind of zooms into Scootaloo's flank, like she's going to get her cutie mark, the score kind of plays along for a second there as well. So we start out with that same theme from before for the performance.
In the Equestria Games, the ponytail flag will be carried by...
The professionalism part there. And there's that little musical sting there, that very magical sounding musical sting that almost kind of makes you think that, oh, is she getting her cutie mark? And then it's like, no, she's not. JK. Kind of playing it along with that. That always got me in the original episode because it fooled me. But that brings us to the end of the score for the episode. So not a lot, and we got a song and a reprise in there, so that takes up a good amount of the episode. And parts of the competition, the preparation for the competition, which just has more incidental music in it. But we kind of have all those very emotional parts there as we get towards the end of the episode, which are really nice. So that's it for this episode. We'll have a lot more score next week for next week's episode, but that's it for this week's. So moving on, what does everyone think about the theme and the morals? I'll say themes and morals because there's multiple morals in this episode. So what does everyone think about those?
Well, I pretty much already went over the one that I mentioned earlier, but I'll mention the one that I had again. So basically the main moral is, of course, to be yourself and not to strive to be like anyone else. But the secondary moral, like I mentioned earlier, is that some people are just simply born differently than others. And you may not be able to do things to the same degree as anyone else, or you may be able to, you might not be able to do certain things, but you shouldn't let that stop you from being the most awesome person you can be.
And there's a lot of just other subtle things in this episode, in terms of little tiny morals, like, about how Scootaloo is sort of acting towards her friends and, focusing so much on what she can't do to the point where she's trying so hard to do, but not realizing how that's affecting her, her friends, and she becomes very self-centered there on it, and forgetting really the whole purpose of why they're there and what they're doing. And then also a little tiny other things like how Apple Bloom is so quick to just get caught up in the anger and be blind to how Scootaloo is feeling and kind of what she's going through and why she's going through it. To the point where she, when Scootaloo says, "I'm done, I'm quitting, I don't want to do this anymore," she's not going there to her aid. She just says, "Fine, we don't want you here either," And to the point where Rainbow Dash kind of very much points that out directly to them when they're on the train, like, well, you went over and convinced her not to go, right? And they're like, well, we kind of told her just to go away. and it's really nice. It's really I really like just that Rainbow Dash is the one delivering a lot of these morals here at the end of the episode to Scootaloo. Again, because it's not something we hear a lot of from Rainbow Dash normally. And also, again, just continuing and expanding upon her relationship with her sort of a younger adopted sister there in Scootaloo. So, favorite parts and any concerns for the episode?
Song was probably one of my favorite parts of the song.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it would be a toss-up between the song and just the characterization of Rainbow Dash and her expanding upon her relationship with Scootaloo at the end of the episode. I really, really, really liked that scene. Even when I initially watched the episode and wasn't fully on board with it, that scene still stuck out to me as really good and really well done.
I have to say, another one of my favorite parts is, again, just Scootaloo being able to at least catch up, if not completely outrun a steam train going full steam. While the steam train is on perfectly flat, level, even ground, and Scootaloo's going over mountains practically, just to beat it to the Crystal Empire under her own power.
Yeah. And for negatives for the episode, I would just echo what Tim had mentioned earlier. I agree with him there that, the whole after the fact thing about concluding the competition was very quick paced, and I can forgive it because of just the nature of a 22-minute episode and them wanting to would rather spend that time of the episode focusing on Scootaloo and her character rather than sort of the plot that's encompassing this character development. It was kind of jarring to kind of quickly wrap that up, but I'm glad they spent that time rather on the character development, because I think that was the best part of the episode and what deserved to have that time. Yeah, it's one of those things where, you can fault it, but, I'm sure some people would love to just focus on that and just point out everything wrong with that, but it really, when you look in the context of the episode and seeing where they would rather had put that time, I can agree with that choice. See, so, final thoughts and conclusions? Overall feelings? I really like this episode, and just watching it, again, I really like where they went with it, and I think for me, it really did require multiple rewatches to kind of see, this is where they're going for, and then going back and actually spending some time understanding the characters and their perspectives and why they're doing what they're doing and going through it, because it's very kind of complex in that sense, in terms of, it's really easy to ask, why is Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle not doing more to help Scootaloo? Why is, Scootaloo not, addressing their feelings, or why is she so focused on this one thing, or why does Apple Bloom just get up and leave and ditch her? It's really easy to critique it very shallowly like that, but when you actually go and take some time and trying to understand each of the characters' point of view and why they're doing what they are, you can kind of see how they're each getting caught up in the moment, or being maybe a little more immature about something, or maybe had their feelings hurt in a way that you have to kind of take a pause and understand. And yeah, I mean, I can't give Ed Valentine enough credit. I really hope he comes back because that was one of the, if you watched our This Week in Pony yesterday, he's one of the question marks. We're not really sure. He hasn't said if he is or isn't coming back, as far as I know. I really hope he does, though, because he's done really great at writing CMC episodes. And if that's all he does going forward, is he writes all of the CMC episodes, I'd be okay with that, because he's written 3 so far, and they've all been really, really good and enjoyable. And the Gabby episode last season was great. I really liked that one. And it did so much with who the CMC are now going forward. It did so much for that concept that I really like how that episode turned out. So, great job, Ed Valentine. I hope he comes back. He has one more episode this season. We'll be talking about a little later. Yeah, I mean, and just again, strength to him, not only writing a good episode, but taking on so much in terms of continuity and the characters, and providing such a great character context, and having to write an episode that is probably one of the biggest parts of Scootaloo's character, at least that fans had been waiting for, in terms of addressing her inability to fly, and he did so in a really good way without being childish or giving some sappy, happy ending at the end. Both him and the rest of the Megan and the rest of the writing staff, deciding, we're going to end this on, she's not flying, but she's learning more about herself and who she actually is. Okay, well, so with that, everyone, thank you so much for participating with our Triple E discussion today of Flight to the Finish. A lot of fun. It's definitely a more emotional, character-heavy episode, and if character-heavy episodes aren't your thing, well, I got news for you, because next week is a much more action-focused, although it does have some character focus as well, episode. Power Ponies. So we're finally going to get to this one. Is Power Ponies season 4 episode is the next one. A lot of stuff to talk about. Like I said, a lot more interesting score to this to the next one. Obviously, with a lot of superhero parody going on, and a good amount to talk about. With this also being a Spike episode. Really, I mean, kind of, again, masked as something greater, but focusing more on a character in the end and who he is. So we'll still have some character stuff to discuss, but a lot of action, a lot of comedy, a lot of parody to discuss next week. So we'll be back for that next Tuesday at normal time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, to discuss Power Ponies. And of course, if you missed yesterday's This Week in Pony episode, we discussed a lot. It's up on our archive, so you can view it on YouTube. You can view it on our archive. If you view it on our archive page on the website here, you can also pull up the show notes and follow along and click on any of the links if you're interested in going to any of the stories to read it yourself or go more in depth. Or if you want to see any of the artwork we finished, that's up. So you'll be able to see that. Of course, if you're not watching this recorded already, this will be up later today, tomorrow, to rewatch this Triple E episode as well. And of course, this weekend, CQ Riffs is back for a new episode this weekend where we'll be watching the just amazing works of Dingo Pictures and Phoenix Games. Matt has played a wonderful, I guess it looks like a fantastically fun game from Phoenix Games that we will be watching him play this weekend, as well as watching some of the Dingo Pictures stuff. So that is this weekend, this Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to watch us suffer through some more wonderful programming, make sure to join us then. But anyway, besides that, thank you so much for joining us this week for Triple E. We will see you next week for Power Ponies. Bye-bye.
Later, folks.
See ya.